What is a literary sponsor? A literary sponsor, as explained by Google, is someone or something directly or indirectly hoping to influence a person's understanding or knowledge of certain ideas or concepts. This isn't something the average person thinks about, but everyone has a literary sponsor, whether it be like someone you're close to, a celebrity, a book, a game, social media. Everyone has a literary sponsor in their life. For me, this would be a game I've known for a long time. Its fandom isn't anywhere to be found exactly, but I would really hope discussing its content would further get more people into the game. Let's move on to one of my own personal literary sponsors, Corpse Party. Corpse Party Blood Covered was released on March 8, 2008, with a remake, repolished version being released on October 20th of 2021. The Corpse Party game stood along as 47 mangas within 10 volumes. The first was released in April of 2009, and the 10th was released on December of 2012. It is an RPG horror game developed by Team Grisgris and was published by XC Games for Microsoft Windows. The plot centers around a group of students, teacher included. Allow me to give my personal belief introduction to all of them as well as my own personal comments. Naomi Nakashima, a bright and cheerful girl but has emotional issues. In hindsight, this will come to bite her in the ass. Ayumi Shinozaki, her fault the following is about to occur. She's a girl a little too interested in the occult. She puts on a tough front and easily becomes frightened, despite enjoying scaring others with stories about ghosts. I swear, I really hate this chick. She's constantly jealous and selfish, especially in other Corpse Party games. Satoshi Mochida, your stereotypical protagonist. I don't find him to be rather important. He's just bland in every sense of the word. For some reason, he gets girls literally all over him from simply being kind-hearted. Yuka Mochida. I find her to be the least important character in this game, and is just an annoying child that tags along and cries a lot. In hindsight, in Chapter 3, literally the entire plot of it is just to find her a restroom. Yoshiki. He comes off as an asshole, but in reality he was disowned by his parents and has to live on his own. He's my favorite characters in this game, especially with how much he has to put up with Ayumi in later chapters. Seiko Shinohara, an energetic girl and Naomi's best friend. She's constantly yelling and screaming, and she's overall a loud individual. She reminds me of myself when I'm comfortable with others, and I love her for it. Mayu Suzumoto, a member of the drama club, and she's sweet. That's all I really know about her. She's had to transfer, and I feel like that's one of the main reasons this plot hole happens. Sakutoro Morishige, a stoic individual and has layers. Overall, he's a character to be looked over. Yui Shishida, she's the classroom teacher. There's really nothing negative I have to say about her. Now, let's get on to the story. The game begins with one of the students, Ayumu Shinozaki, telling a terrifying ghost story to the rest of her classmates about an elementary school called Heavenly Host, where 4 murders occurred, the death of a teacher, and the principal, let's just say unaliving once the school had shut down. With one successful prank later with the help of a teacher and the arrival of one of the students' little sisters, that Yuka girl was talking about earlier, it is implied that they should have finished cleaning up the classroom by now after their festival. Japanese schools are a lot different from American ones. At the end of each day, the students must clean up the school rather than the hired faculty. Since one of the students, Mayu, is transferring, Ayumi asks them to do the charm she found on the internet. This is where things take a downhill turn. Ayumi explains the Sachiko Ever After charm, where they have to say Sachiko we beg of you 9 times, which it's normal for Japanese students to do cults rituals, I suppose. They do the charm, nothing happens, and then they all go home. Just kidding, there's an earthquake, the entire floor clears from a massive earthquake, and they fall somewhere into an entirely different school. So, by this point I'm sort of confused, because I just went through over damn near 45 minutes of straight reading an RPG horror game, but it's okay, I can never stay mad at Corpse Party. This series is absolutely amazing. So we wake up in a completely different school. Okay, now we're playing as Naomi, the main character of Chapter 1. After a bit of walking around and finding a board that the game refuses to let me pick up, we discover Seiko on the other side of the classroom we wake up in. Since the classroom has holes, we can't cross, so we have to go outside and use the other door. And apparently, in hindsight, there's no way you can avoid this, but Naomi always trips on this part because of plot reasons, I guess. It's a bit scary the first time, kind of jump scares you, but after that, you're just wondering why they can never jump in this game. I swear she trips literally several times in chapter 1 alone. So Naomi wakes Seiko up and they begin to try and open one of the windows, to no avail. Naomi points out that the desks are awfully small, which should have been the one thing, or at least the first thing they did when they went or woke up in that place. These two then find out that they are now at the very same elementary school told in the ghost story. Who would have guessed that a random code charm you found on the internet transported you to an entirely different school? They ramble on some more about things that weren't really important. Naomi puts up her strongest front because she lied through her teeth to Seiko, knowing damn well they ain't making it out of there. However, this is something I love most about Chapter 1. We can really get to relate to Naomi as a person, since she's the main character in this chapter. The amount of detail put into her thoughts and emotions really resonates with me. By this point, we can finally start moving, and there are 2 branching paths we can take, which brings me back to the board we found earlier back into use. Gameplay-wise, there isn't that much in this chapter besides the infirmary, which I will get to in a moment. There are many things we can examine and it gives varying detail to each thing. There's a lot of reading in this game, and personally I love examining every single thing in it, but that's also the crutch in this game. There are some papers lying around called victims' memoirs that will actually put you in a bad ending of this game, so sometimes it's not best to read everything is what I've learned, but it gives you the choice. Curiosity kills the cat, but the game gives you the option to keep reading. Occasionally, the characters stop to speak to one another, which is also really nice. It gives the story structure. At some point, they find their first, dead body or corpse and have been run in with a spirit that tells them they've been transported to an entirely different dimension and they will die here just like everyone else. Another spirit appears, starting to draw something on the chalkboard. At this point, our 2 characters make the smart decision of booking in. After they recover, I decide to keep it moving. Another thing, it's kind of weird this next part is required for the true ending of Chapter 1. Me skipping past this part gave me the wrong ending the first time around, and I had to redo it all over again. There's a ghost that drops a key, but before he does, he explains to the 2 that if they die, they will feel eternal death in whichever way they did, which I find to be a really interesting take on a haunted area. Upon entering the room the key conveniently goes to, there's another pile of bones, and on the floor it clearly says, "Don't look at the newspaper." And what does Seiko suggest we do? Look at the newspaper. The story doesn't progress unless you do this, so I had no choice but to look at the newspaper. Turns out the ghost story is actually true, and the 4 kids ended up dying. From what we see before the newspaper got torn in half, they had a lot of things done to them that I will not get into detail because it's actually really morbid. But they put a lot of detail into how these kids had died. Surprise, surprise, I didn't heed Drybone's warning. The doors we came from locked on their own and now we can't get out. Upon re-looking at the newspaper, it will change from the reporting of the 4 kids to simply, "You will never leave this room." After a bit of walking, they do walk, and to be honest, I feel as though this section was pointless. For it to have given me a bad ending, not to encounter is kind of stupid. After this, we go to the infirmary and Seiko patches up Naomi's ankle, which is probably so messed up from all that dripping she did. Then they hear Yuka, the little sister of Satoshi, crying for the second time. The first time was when Seiko asked for Naomi for some, I don't know either, shut up. So, Seiko leaves the room to go look for Yuka. While Seiko was gone, Naomi looks around the infirmary when the door suddenly gets locked by a lot of hair. It's just wrapped around the door. So now I'm just standing here with Naomi. She's looking at me, I'm looking at her, confused as to what's happening. And this black figure starts chasing Naomi around the room, breaking holes into the floor that she can't step over. So panic kicks in since I'm having to control Naomi at this point, trying to get her out of this room. I'm trying to find a way out, and I die a couple of times before I finally get my answer. Apparently, there's a set of matches and rubbing alcohol you're supposed to get in the room to douse the hair and light it on fire. At this point, if you didn't go to A3 before this, you would have gotten the bad ending, which is what happened to me the first time around. 3 little ghost kids make you eat a pair of scissors for some reason. By this point, Naomi's food from earlier goes the wrong way just as Seiko gets back. So Seiko, being a good friend, comes for her. And then Naomi just starts being a dick. Granted, she probably lost part of her sanity in that room, especially because I made her die multiple times. But Seiko didn't do anything, so I really have no idea why she's bursting out. And Naomi basically calls Seiko weird for trying to be optimistic about being stuck literally in an entire different dimension filled with spirits, bones, and corpses. So Seiko gets her feelings hurt, and it just goes all down here from there. And then Naomi starts to make another dumb move. She asks if they can split up, and by this point it's already too late to fix anything. Then we surprisingly switch to controlling Seiko, and I get a little excited because I actually didn't expect this to happen. But almost immediately, we're no longer in control of her again as she hears a voice and we have no choice but to follow it. We then cut back to Naomi, and I finally get to move around again. She hears a bunch of thuds in the bathroom after walking around for a bit. When I tried to leave this area, the game refused to let me, which I knew something bad was going to happen again. In hindsight, I already got the ending the first time, so I didn't expect anything different. This is where we say Seiko had unalived using a rope. Naomi's distraught, of course, but Seiko's survival instincts again, and it turns out she's actually still alive. By this point, I'm giving control of Naomi again and being forced to help Seiko. Ultimately, I find a bucket and bring it back, but by this point, it was already too late. Seiko had succumbed to asphyxiation and was dead. And the chapter literally ends there with just her screaming. I've only decided to explain chapter 1, and although it was quick in video form, the script is over 2,000 words long. And I didn't even get to speak for the rest of the 4 chapters of the game despite mentioning them at some points, but I hope to make that in another video during my own time when it's not project based. So, what does this have to do with anything regarding literacy? Why is Course Party my literacy sponsor? Well, it shaped the way I write in terms of detail, in storytelling, point of views. I've never really jumped from view to view, character to character before I got into Course Party, especially at a younger age, but I found myself doing it more in stories, putting in thorough details in all of my stories. I had fun in the first chapter when we played as Naomi, in the second when we played as Yoshiki, and in the third we play as Satoshi and his little sister. Overall, I really do enjoy Course Party, albeit the gameplay-wise, where you're just moving around and walking around can be a little tough because there are certain scenes that you're required to trigger in order to progress. But as for the wording and the visuals and the examining of certain things and objects, I really do enjoy. And I feel like it's a game you should play for yourself. I don't think you'd regret it. Alright. I really hope this video, albeit short, is something that convinced you to maybe try the game and give it a chance.